You're on the Sunday night no, it's not. You're on the Bible Forum. It used to be the Sunday night Bible Forum, but now it's just the Bible Forum. And that's because we have plans to do it during the week when it is possible. But we want to welcome you to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. I'm your host and your guide. We've been doing this together for about 16 years. Was on the radio for that period of time. The radio station that I was on decided they didn't want to have a talk segment. They switched to music, and that put me out of business, but the technology had caught up to me. We have been broadcasting online audio and then video since the year 2000. I don't know that anybody was doing that in 2000, but we were doing that. And now the technology has just exploded, and you can pretty much do whatever you want. So this is what I do. I am a local pastor here in Wilmington, North Carolina, and we look at the world through a biblical lens. And you know that the election cycle is upon us, and we have folks who have announced that they're going to run for president. They're going to go through the primaries and see if their party will have them. As this is unfolding, and we looked at Rand Paul last week because he had been asked questions about his faith, and this week Hillary Clinton and Marco Rubio have been asked questions about their faith. And so I thought it might be interesting for you to hear the kinds of things that have come out. And of course, in doing this, we're recording it. It's for posterity, you say. It's interesting to note that in the previous election cycle in 2008, all the candidates that were running and the two major candidates that went head-to-head were supportive of the traditional marriage. They were supportive of traditional marriage as a foundation of society. This time around, not so much. What happened? What changed? How did the family change in just a matter of 4 or 5 or 6 years? Well, it didn't. The family is still the major input of major force in our society. It's the foundation of all societies. But we have become more enlightened. We don't have to have that family. We can have a strong, solid society without the family. You didn't know that? Oh, come on, get in the game. It's the 21st century, people. Hillary says she was shaped by a saying popular among Methodists. She was raised Methodist. Quote, do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can. That was quoted by Paul Krenger in a book, God and Hillary Clinton. I don't think that included lying about anything. As a young girl, she was part of a guild that cleaned the altar at First United Methodist Church in Park Ridge, Illinois. As a teenager, she visited the inner city Chicago churches with her youth pastor, a fellow by the name of Don Jones, who was her spiritual mentor until his death in 2009. During her husband's presidency, the first family worshiped at Washington's Foundry United Methodist Church, and Time magazine described her membership in a bipartisan women's prayer group organized by evangelicals. Hillary Clinton has been known to carry a Bible in her purse. She told the 2007 CNN Faith Forum, quote, advertising her faith doesn't come naturally to me. Every vote Clinton made as a senator from New York, she said, was a moral responsibility. We asked the forum why she thought God allows suffering, or when asked, Clinton demurred on theology. then swiftly turned her answer to activism. The existence of suffering calls us to action. In a 1993 speech at the University of Texas, Clinton declared, "We need a new politics of meaning. We have to summon up what we believe is morally and ethically and spiritually correct and do the best we can with God's guidance." A month later, she was pictured as a saint in a Sunday New York Times Magazine exploration of that politics of meaning phrase. Prayer matters. Clinton joked at the Faith Forum that sometimes her plea is, "Oh Lord, why can't you help me lose weight?" But her daily habit, she said, is praying. She prays for discernment, she prays for wisdom, she prays for strength and for courage. When what she calls grace notes matter as well. She describes them to advisor Burns Strider as, quote, "a gift that is undeserved but bestowed by the everyday joys, beauties, kindnesses, pleasures of life that can strike a deep chord of connection between us and the divine and between us and the mundane." She says it's important that we make clear that we believe people are people of faith because it's part of their whole being. It's what gives them meaning in their life. Last April, Clinton told the annual Methodist Women Assembly that their shared faith has guided her to be an advocate for children and families, not the traditional family, but families, for women and for men around the world who are oppressed and persecuted, denied their human rights and human dignity. One of those human rights is the right to have an abortion on demand. Have you noticed some of the interviews that have been done on the street and other places where people are asked who they intend to vote for and why? Are you noticing that young people are saying that they want to vote for Hillary? When asked why, the major answer seems to be because we need a woman in the White House. Is she qualified to be President of the United States? Doesn't matter. We need a woman in the White House. Does she understand our Constitution? Yes. Does she believe that the president's responsibility is to uphold the Constitution? No. How do I know that? What is she dealing with now? She had her own server in her house, bypassing Congress, bypassing the law, doing it in direct opposition to the law, violating the Constitution, in hiding what she was doing, being secretive instead of out in the light of day. No, she doesn't get it. I think that Hillary Clinton wants to be president because it's her turn, and I think there are Democrats who still operate that way. I know Republicans do. If it's your turn, it's your turn. But as a woman of faith, she has never given any indication on any level that she can spell the word God or that she cares. Hillary is out there in the public with enough information that you can say, without fear of criticism or condemnation, she has no problem lying. That's not what Christians do. All Christians can lie, but they don't as a rule. You see, being a Christian is not being a member of a church. Being a Christian is when God changes who you are at the very center of your being on a spiritual level, that you are now a new creature, totally different, totally new, new values, new standards, new requirements to live up to, standards that are much higher than anything the Constitution offers. And the woman doesn't demonstrate that. She knows the jargon, and she talks that way. Another Christian in the same vein is a guy by the name of Tony Campolo. Tony Campolo is a Baptist, an American Baptist, which means he's liberal. He's been a professor in a college outside of Philadelphia for the last 40 years. And he thinks that Hillary is just the most wonderful thing in the world. As First Lady of Arkansas, she demonstrated her administrative abilities, improving the state school system, and even her political opponents had to admit that she made a significant progress in lifting the educational system from the doldrums. Hillary also understands how Congress works. Amidst dire problems, the last session of Congress proved to be one of the least productive of any in our nation's history. Why? Because the Democrat Senate leader wouldn't bring anything up for a vote. They didn't vote on anything the House gave them. That's what the problem was. When she was a senator, she demonstrated that she could work across party lines, forge progressive policies that made for a better America. If she worked across party lines, she wasn't doing it to push progressive programs. Conservative Republicans are not pushing progressive programs. She worked across the line. She worked with the liberals, both of them. She believed Dick Cheney when he told her that Saddam Hussein had developed weapons of mass destruction. And so did every nation of the world. Did you know that? Every nation of the world believed that. It wasn't Dick Cheney's idea. Colin Powell went to the United Nations and sold it. He wishes he hadn't, because it proved to be untrue. But everybody believed it. And 10 years later, we're finding them. The man moved them. We're finding them. Every once in a while, a little piece pops up, and they find them. In Syria, Afghanistan, they find them. Isn't that amazing? As Secretary of State, she demonstrated her ability to negotiate foreign policy. Name one. Hillary Clinton modeled being a faithful wife and a loving, effective mother at a time when we needed such a model. She supported the traditional family structure, which she now says isn't important anymore. She showed that the promises she made her husband on their wedding day were binding through better or worse. Had he not been president of the United States, if he had not been governor of Arkansas, if he didn't have coattails to get her where she wanted to go, do you really think that would have happened? I don't know. Hillary Clinton is one of the few candidates on the political stage who has a plan for cutting the abortion rate in America by at least 50%. How's that? How are we going to do that? More drugs. More preventative, which mostly are abortive. She's committed to addressing each of these problems and thus diminishing the urgency that drives so many oppressed women into having abortions. I thought it was sexual activity that created babies. I didn't know it was finances. As a pro-life Democrat, she's encouraged by the possibility. I know Hillary Clinton to be a committed Christian. He's seen her when I haven't, I guess. I have a different definition. Maybe that's my problem. A different definition of what's a committed Christian? A committed Christian is a person who's committed to holiness of life and manner, above reproach on every level. That's a committed Christian. Who understands the gospel, who has a heart to try to share that gospel wherever they can. Not have a mouth like a truck driver and lie. Sorry. Marco Rubio on the Republican side is running for president. He's been interviewed and people have tracked down some things he has said to kind of get some flavor as to where he is. Marco Rubio often talks about faith, wrote about his religious convictions in a 2012 book called An American Son, a memoir. Tough to write a memoir at 40. You got to be a little older than that, I think. First of all, Rubio's parents baptized him as a Roman Catholic, and he is now a practicing Catholic. But when he was 8 years old, his family moved from South Florida to Las Vegas, and there his mother saw Mormons, and she saw the wholesomeness of the neighborhood, and she blamed the Mormons for that. And so young Rubio was again baptized, this time in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where he spent 3 years as a Mormon, upheld its teachings more enthusiastically than did his parents. As an adult, Rubio and his wife Jeanette often visit Miami's Christ Fellowship, a Southern Baptist congregation the couple appreciates for its strong preaching and children's programs. Rubio has donated at least $50,000 to the church, which he attended almost exclusively from 2000 to 2004, but now finds his religious home in Catholic churches in Washington, D.C. and in Florida. In his memoir, Rubio writes that he will go with his family to Christ Fellowship on Saturday nights and Mass on Sundays at St. Louis Catholic Church. His children have received First Holy Communion there. In 2012, GQ magazine asked him how old did he think the Earth was, and he kind of bobbed and weaved. He said, "I'm not a scientist. I don't think I'm qualified to answer any questions like that. At the end of the day, I think there are multiple theories out there on how the universe was created, and I think this is a country where people should have the opportunity to teach them all." After much criticism, Rubio said that he knows the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, and that the fact is consistent with his belief that, quote, "in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." What does that make him? It doesn't make him a Bible believer. It makes him a theistic evolutionist. These people believe that the days of creation were at least 1,000 years long or longer, despite the fact that the Bible says the morning and the evening were the first day, the second day, third day. Rubio talks about faith in a way that has many atheists convinced he considers them less American than their religious neighbors. And he answers all that by saying faith in our Creator is the most important American value of all. But in doing all of that, Andrew Sullivan, a Catholic, blogged that Rubio just ruled atheists out of being Americans. You can expect more of that as time goes on. Rubio wrote that Christ Fellowship deepened his relationship with Jesus, but that he missed Roman Catholicism. "I craved literally the most blessed sacrament, Holy Communion, the sacramental point of contact between the Catholic and the liturgy of heaven. I wondered why there couldn't be a church that offered both, a powerful contemporary gospel message and the actual body and blood of Jesus." But he didn't ask me why, did he? Why? Do you know? Because those two items are mutually exclusive. You can have Roman Catholic communion or you can have the gospel. You cannot have them both. They are antithetical. They are enemies against each other. They stand for two opposing concepts. Starting in late 2004, he began to delve deeper into his Roman Catholic roots, reading the whole catechism. Reading the whole catechism? This is a paperback version. It comes bigger than this, and the print is very small. But this is the last Roman Catholic edition, last edition of Roman Catholic Catechism. I think it was the year 2000 or somewhere around there. It may be due for another one any day now, but it doesn't change much. Every sacrament, he says, every symbol and tradition of the Catholic Church is intended to convey above everything else the revelation that God yearns to for a relationship with you. Did you know that no Roman Catholic, believing Roman Catholic doctrine, is certain that they can be in heaven? Not even the Pope. No Catholic believes that it is a certainty, that the Bible anywhere promises this to you or to me. The fact that Jesus, when he was here, says, "These things are written that you might know that you have eternal life." No, don't let Jesus interfere with that. John chapter 17, by the way, high priestly prayer. This is life eternal, he said, that they might know the only true God and Jesus Christ, whom thou hast sent. Praying to his Father. In John chapter 20, these things are written that ye might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing ye might have life through his name. Roman Catholic Church doesn't believe that. They don't believe that salvation comes through what you believe. They believe that the grace of God comes to the human being through them, through the priest, as they officiate in sacraments. A sacrament is an activity intended to mediate the grace of God. And in the Roman system, it can only happen by duly ordained priests. You can't do it. Therefore, only if a priest performs the rite can God's grace be effective in the Catholic's life. And for the Catholic Church, salvation is only available through them. You can't get it in this Baptist church. And that's probably why he went back. And the Eucharist, Holy Communion, that's the pivot point. That is the heart and soul of Roman Catholicism. They've changed a lot of stuff. You can eat meat on Friday. You don't have to put an idol on your dashboard anymore. And there's a lot of other things that they have modified, but they have never, ever changed communion, the Eucharist. Because for them, that is a continual sacrifice of Christ. The elements become literally the body and the blood of Christ, which is then broken and shed for you. Something the Bible specifically condemns. Hebrews chapter 10. They are sacrificing Christ afresh. They wear him around their neck on a cross, still in agony. They take him down at Easter, resurrection, but he goes right back up. His work is never done. And his priests are continuing to offer that work through these sacraments. In this book I just showed you, on page 381, it says that the Eucharist is the same as Christ's sacrifice, that it is truly propitiatory. That means it gains favor. It is appeasing God's wrath. On page 536, justification is conferred by baptism. It's called the sacrament of faith. In page 352 and again on page 353, it says that this baptism is regeneration. These children at infancy are taken to the church and they are baptized. They don't have any part in it. They're baptized into the church. At age 10 or 11, they are required to confirm that baptism by an act of their own will. What are they doing? They're being baptized into the church. Rubio has to get back. He's been over to the Mormons. He's been to the rock and roll church that Southern Baptists have in that town. He's enjoyed the youth ministries. He's done everything for for the kids and so forth. But in the end, he's got to go back to the church or he's in trouble. That's the power. That's the hold. Hillary, I don't think she's got any religion at all. Rubio, this is his religion. Ben Carson. Ben Carson is going to put his hat in that ring. He came up on the news this past week. He said, at Easter anyway, he said, as Easter approaches, let us remember the role that Jesus Christ and God play in our life. Let us also remember that Jews, Christians, and Muslims all believe in God. And while there are ideological differences in who Jesus was, we should find peace in the fact that we are all God's children. No, we're not. Jesus is my role model, and he preached love. He preached acceptance. He also was a man of values and principles, and he ended up being crucified for it. But he rose again to advocate godly principles of loving our fellow man, caring about our neighbors, developing our God-given talents to the utmost so that we can become valuable to the people around us and maintaining high ideals that govern our lives. One of the smartest men in the world has no idea who Jesus is, what Jesus is, what salvation is, why we need it, what it does, how it works. All of this to say that basically folks can stand up, say whatever they want to say, and they'll fool most of us. I like Ben Carson. I think he's an honorable man. I would have said he was a godly Christian man. Hasn't got a clue. Hasn't got a clue. What are we really talking about? We're talking about cultural Christianity. It's not the biblical type. It's the cultural type. And cultural Christianity is taking over. Wherever religion is seen as important, it's cultural Christianity that's taken over. And we'll talk about that when we get back.